Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our 65th monthly Zoom presentation. We can all be very proud of the amazing library of recordings we are building. It's truly a testament to the diversity of the roadside. I am Brian Gallagher, the president of the Society for Commercial Archaeology, and proud to be your host for tonight's presentation. Welcome to all our guests and any new people we have with us this evening. We're happy you took the time to watch an SCA presentation. I hope you enjoy the show. And for anybody watching the recording of this episode of the SCA's monthly presentations who is not a member of the SCA, we earnestly ask you to consider joining. Funding for the various activities of the SCA comes almost exclusively from our membership. Just visit our website at www.sca-roadside.org and follow the links. Now I have the pleasure of introducing tonight's presenter. 2025 marks 100 years since the opening of the world's first motel. Tonight, Heather David, author of Motel California, will take us on a virtual road trip where we will celebrate sparkling blue pools, flashing neon signs, automatic ice machines, and bleached white towels. We'll travel from the Old West to outer space, discover the tingling relaxation and ease of vibrating beds, and revisit the thrill of the poolside. Let's explore the beginnings of the American Motel, its rapid rise in popularity, subsequent decline, and recent resurrection. Heather David is a California-based cultural historian and freelance writer. She is the author of the books Mid-Century by the Bay, Motel California, and numerous articles on American popular culture and historic preservation. Heather is an advocate for the preservation of mid-century modern architecture, art, and signage, with a focus on Northern California modernism. Heather, would you like to join, share your screen and start the presentation?
Okay, I hope everybody can hear me. If not, let me know.
We can hear you and we can see the slides. It looks great.
Fantastic. And you can't see the slide menu or anything, right?
Nope, just the slide.
Fantastic. That's what I want. Welcome, everybody. It's wonderful to see all these names. I feel like if you remember the show Romper Room, I feel like I'm missing my magic mirror and I can see a lot of friends in the audience. So I'm really happy to be here with you tonight to celebrate 100 years of the motel in America and to go through some of the images that I've collected over time. My book, Motel California, was 10 years in the making. And even though it came out in 2017, I've still been collecting and researching and uncovering new things. So about a third of this presentation is all new material. So we'll get this going because I have a lot to share with you tonight. The first slide is actually something I put together just for this presentation. It's not actually my book cover, but it contains an architectural rendering of a very, very special motel. It's a motel that I think Steve Spiegel has photographed more than any other human being in history. And it's also a featured motel, a place for people to stay during the next SCA conference, which will be hosted in Los Angeles. So I'll get to what this motel represents and what it means a bit later, but I want to make sure I highlighted this very special place, which is located in Southern California in Burbank. Okay. There we go. So this is a little bit of a background on my experience and history with the Society for Commercial Archaeology. I've been a contributing writer for the SCA since about 2012, and these are a few of the articles that I've written that actually made it to cover territory. Wrote about San Diego Shelter Island, a personal tour of Palm Springs, an overview of vintage Las Vegas, an article called Plastic Fantastic about plastic signage, an article about scream locks, and my next article, which will be coming soon, is called Sleepy Bear Was Everywhere, about the history of Travelodge motels. So I hope that if you're not a member of the SCA, you might consider becoming a member. The SCA is close to my heart and has given me a platform for preservation advocacy where I haven't been able to find one elsewhere. You may be asking yourself, what is this adult woman's interest in motels? And so I wanted to offer a little clue as to my history of motels. This is a picture of me, probably 1972 or so. Um, and I've got this fabulous Superfly pleather jacket with horrible mustard yellow stockings. The only thing I think of, my friend Rob thinks that it was a 49er game. I'm actually from San Francisco. So they probably dressed me up for the 49er game. And I am holding a balloon, a very special balloon, which is a hint as to why I might have become interested in motels. When I was a kid, our one trip, our one vacation every year was to Disneyland. We drove down from Northern California to Southern California, and I could not sleep. I was up all night waiting to get there. In the 70s and starting in the 1960s, there were over 50 motels around the perimeter of Disneyland Park. And for me, the amount of eye candy was indescribable. Each one of these motels was one of a kind. These were not corporate chain motels. They were mostly owned by families. Most of them were themed and extensions of Disneyland Park or the popular cultural themes of the time. And I think this is where it all started for me. Disneyland was extremely special, but I could have just spent the day driving around the park. I mean, I just think that there was so much to see that it left such a lasting impression on me. And of course, the motel for me meant vacation, travel, fun, freedom, fantasy, a real splurge, a real experience. So the motel meant for me what I think it meant for a lot of people. It was vacation, freedom. Going back in time, the Disneyland experience was not just new to me. It was part of our family tradition. So this is actually a slide that I surfaced a little bit later of the Musketeer Motel in Anaheim. And my grandfather took this photo. They must have just been coming in after a day at the park. Looks like the sun is going down. And they were right outside the pool. And this is a family photo. So my father grew up going to Disneyland. Um, and most of my friends know that he was an artist and an art teacher. I think he drew a lot of inspiration from all of the creativity within the park, all the fantasy and creativity, and wanted to share that with me when I was little. So it went from my father growing up with Disneyland to me growing up with Disneyland. And until my father's passing, we still went every year. I spoke with Charles Phoenix this morning, good friend of mine, and he said to me, he goes, if these motels mattered so much to you, which one was your favorite motel? One word, Stovall's. Some people might think that I wanted to stay at the Princess Motel or maybe the Heidi Motel or maybe the Peter Pan Motel, one of the storybook themed motels. But for me, it was all about the space age. And just at like Disneyland, it was all about Tomorrowland. I wanted to stay at a Stovall's Motel. Al Stovall was the man behind these motels. He launched a new achievement in motor hotel design in 1964, opening up this motel, the Space Age Motel in Anaheim, California. He also opened up one in Arizona, in Gila Bend. And he was into plastics. He was into wore many hats, but one of the things he did was he did sell plastics. He had a plastics company, and I think he test drove, if you will, a lot of his own products on his motels. The Space Age was the first in a series of what would become 5 motels around the perimeter of Anaheim, offering moon level luxury at down to earth rates. Please note, this is not space age luxury at down to earth rates. That would be the tagline for Astro Motels. And we'll get to that a little bit later, but this was moon level luxury. Not sure the difference between moon level luxury and space age luxury, but it's kind of fun to see that they both borrowed from each other. The second in the chain of Stovall's motels was the Cosmic Age, and most of these motels had just mind-blowing lobbies, just over the top. My father couldn't stand them. He thought they were garish. But for me, they were magic, pure magic. And this is the lobby of the Cosmic Age, 1967. You'll see in the back some windows that are kind of special. I want you to take note of those windows in the back there. Those windows could be seen at the Inn of Tomorrow. It was a place I always wanted to stay. It was my bucket list motel as a child. The reason why I wanted to stay at the Inn of Tomorrow, it was the one Stovall's enterprise that had the wonderland of topiary trees. And we're lucky the wonderland of topiary trees still exists. It's no longer the Inn of Tomorrow, it's Stovall's Inn, but they still have the topiary garden that you can visit. This image to the right is of the windows that you also saw at the Cosmic Age from the outside of the motel in 2008. While the rest of my family was at the park, Disneyland Park, my dad and I left and we did a tour of all the remaining Anaheim motels, did an architectural tour around the perimeter of Disneyland. And so you'll see the windows here from 2008, and you'll see the windows again in Al Stovall's own home, which still exists. I don't want to give out the address to it because I want to respect the owner's privacy, but the Stovall's Home of Tomorrow still exists, and it's in Southern California, and I did have to make a pilgrimage. There he is in Phoenix Magazine in front of the screens to the front of his house, and there is the house itself. So I mentioned that the Inn of Tomorrow was my bucket list. It was the motel I wanted to stay at. And for years, I thought I had never stayed there before. I thought that we had stayed at the Cosmic Age. I didn't remember staying at the Inn of Tomorrow. And I would give my dad grief about it. And I'd say, why didn't we ever stay at the Inn of Tomorrow? My father was a school teacher, didn't have a lot of money. So I think that we might have stayed at some of the cheaper properties, the Galaxy or the Apollo Inn. And then I found this family slide, this family photo of a trip to Anaheim. And that's me and my cousin taking a break from the park, watching cartoons and recharging while we go back for the remainder of the day. If you look at that headboard, it's unmistakable. The green velvet, the gilded frame, that is the Inn of Tomorrow, a new concept in space age comfort. And evidently, my dad was correct. I did actually get to experience it. So all is right in the world. And here I am in the wonderland of topiary trees in 2008 when my dad and I were touring Anaheim and seeing what was left after all the years. And roughly 10 years later, my book came out, Motel California. And here we are in 2025, celebrating 100 years of the world's first motel. So let's backpedal a little bit. So we're all on the same page. The definition of a motel is a roadside hotel designed primarily for motorists, typically having the rooms arranged in a low building with parking directly outside. Origin, 1920s, blend of motor and hotel. See also motor court, motor inn, motor hotel, motor lodge. So a motel and a car go hand in hand. Prior to the turn of the century, the primary vehicle, if you will, of travel was the train. And most people that were traveling were really well-to-do. Most of the hotels were positioned near train stations. They were very formal. There was, you'd have to pay someone to take your bags to your room. There was a kind of a formal parlor in the hotel where people were seen. And the motels were much more casual. You could drive up to your room. It eliminated a lot of the formality of the hotel, and they were much more accessible. This is a linen postcard of the world's first motel. This is in San Luis Obispo, California. It is the Motel Inn. It started numerous names and started in 1925. For a while, it was the Milestone Motor Hotel or Motor Inn. And the reason why this is considered the world's first motel is because they tried to combine motor hotel onto their signage. You'll see the sign MH Hotel. It just is kind of a mess. They tried to combine these two words, and they ultimately decided to hyphenate motor hotel. And call it a motel. This building actually still exists. It's probably not the first motel in terms of a building type, but it was the first time a motel was called a motel. Here's the Motel Inn in the 1950s after getting a mid-century makeover and adding a lot of neon signs. I think the earlier signs were probably milk glass, but I'm not sure. And here's a more recent view of what's left of the motel. I have heard that they are trying to build a boutique hotel property from this, and I hope that that is indeed the case. And I wanted to show people that truly, early marketing collateral, the motel was hyphenated. And just so people understood what they were referring to, in parentheses, you have here Motor Hotel. This is a brochure for the Eldorado Motel in Stockton, California from the early 1930s, offering a garage at your door. And the building is actually still there. Motels really the real building boom happened after World War II. So when you look at motels, early 1920s, there were about, well, actually, I don't know how many there were at that time, but from 46 to 1961, the number of motels in the US increased threefold, going from 20,000 to over 60,000 motels. And this new industry was marketed primarily to married couples. The families would actually live on site and manage the property. You'll see still in some of the older motels, the living quarters for the families that lived on the premises. Here's some marketing collateral that I have in my collection for motel owners, how to keep of their motel, maintain their motel properties. Also a match cover I have to cash in on the motel boom and learn motel management. And so the motel really boomed after World War II. There was kind of a building moratorium during the war for obvious reasons, but with post-war prosperity, the motel really kind of took off. Back to the motel being a mom and pop enterprise. This is very important. This is before the corporate chains. Here is the Hightower family. They were the owners of the Jack and Jill Motel in Anaheim. And you'll see on the back of postcards, you'll see managed by such and such a couple or managed by such and such a family. Most of these motels were individually owned properties. Here's another family that reached out to me after I gave a presentation in Anaheim. They were the owners of the Polynesian Motel in Anaheim. I have a chapter on motel architecture because I think this is really important. When you think of motels, most people don't think that an architect was involved. And in many cases, an architect was involved. And in some cases, a very notable architect was involved. So I felt it important to include a chapter on the motel architects. The standard the early motels tended to be L-shaped or U-shaped in design, single story, maybe 15 to 20 units. But over time, these motels evolved and became two-story, sometimes even three-story, and you'd see up to 100, 150 rooms. This is a cover for Architectural Record, April 1958, featuring the Dinah's Garden Hotel in Palo Alto, which still exists. The architects for this motor hotel were Campbell and Wong from the Bay Area. And if you've not been here, I highly recommend a visit. It is remarkably intact. The motel sits on waterways. So many of the rooms, actually, their patios extend onto water. And there are ducks you can feed, and it's absolutely gorgeous. What used to be the Dinah's restaurant out front was taken over by Trader Vic's for a while. And so what happened when Trader Vic's left, they left a lot of the tikis that were incorporated into the Dinah's property. So if you're interested in tiki culture, there's an amazing assortment of Polynesian art, authentic Polynesian art, all over the Dinah's Garden Hotel property, which is another added little treat. This is the Carolina Hollywood Motel in Hollywood, no longer there, but the architects of this property were Arme and Davis, best known for their coffee shops in Southern California. And this was also right next to the Carolina Pines restaurant. What you would find with Arme and Davis is sometimes they would do a motel and a coffee shop or restaurant on the same property. They would win both commissions. And sometimes not. Sometimes they would do the coffee shop and another architectural firm would do the motel. But most people don't think of Arme and Davis and think of them as motel architects. They were very much motel architects in addition to restaurant architects. And I believe they did some schools and residences as well. Imperial 400 Motels was a chain started in Southern California in 1959. The prototype for Imperial 400 Motels was designed by Palmer and Kreisel, best known for their residences in Southern California, Los Angeles, San Diego, Palm Springs. And this is the very notable prototype. You still see many of these properties around. And this is one of my all-time favorites. This is the Villa Roma Motor Hotel in San Francisco off of Columbus. It opened in late 1961, was featured in Life magazine. It was called the Rusty Donut by Herb Caen, but absolutely love this motel. It was in the round. It had a wonderful cocktail lounge where they would record artists, and I actually have a record that was recorded at the Villa Roma. And the architects of the Villa Roma were none other than Anshin and Allen, the same architects that worked with Eichler in the early years of his residential developments. Storyland. I have a number of themed chapters in my book because one of the things I was most interested in were how do these motels, if you've got 50 motels around the perimeter of Disneyland, how in the world do you differentiate yourself from the 10 others on the block? And popular themes of the time were one way that motel owners were able to stand out from the rest. This is the Glass Slipper Motel in Palo Alto, California. It's still there, 1964. The whole facade is a fairy tale castle. Behind that facade is your standard two-story U-shaped motel. Still there off the El Camino Real, aka the King's Highway or the Mission Trail. This is the Western Motel, one of the very first sign photos I ever took. This particular image is from around 1958. This is in Santa Clara, California. Sign still exists. Unfortunately, the neon tubing has been removed, but I always say it can be put back. This is the Pyramid Motel, the former Pyramid Motel that was in Anaheim, and their claim to fame was you could ride their camel and take a souvenir photo. They even put stairs out there to climb up onto the camel and take your picture, and that was their differentiator, their little gimmick there. If you want to have the same camel visit, you can do that at the former Sahara Motor Hotel in Miami off of Collins Avenue. They still have their camels out front, so you can still have that camel experience. I don't know if you can ride them, but they're still there that you can take a picture next to. The Tropicana Lodge is actually another Arme and Davis design. It's actually on the cover of my book, Motel California. This amazing property that the restaurant unfortunately is no longer, but the motel still exists. Much of the theming has been stripped, but if you look real close, you can see some masks hiding underneath the palm fronds. So it's a fun visit, and that's in Fresno, California. Here's our Astro Motel in Pasadena, California, the very first in a chain of motels. It started in 1962, and it still looks very much like this. In fact, I think they have revived this property. Haven't stayed there yet, but it looks very, very nice. Astro Motel, and Astro Motel offered space age luxury at down-to-earth rates. Not moon level luxury at down-to-earth rates, but space age luxury. So if someone knows the difference, please let me know. This is a Seashell Motel in Blythe, California. I like some of the themes because they're fantasy themes. There is, the only seashell you're going to get in Blythe is at maybe a souvenir shop or at the Seashell Motel. Blythe is in the middle of the desert. So here was a seaside escape in the middle of the desert. And Blythe was the former capital of the world at the time. And here we have the Matterhorn Motel, not near Disneyland, but in Tahoe, Lake Tahoe. And up until recently, it looked just like this. Lake Tahoe saw a ton of motel development in the early 60s that corresponded with the tourism related to the Winter Games, the Olympic Winter Games. So many motels from that period. Moving on, in the early 1960s, a motel had to have a restaurant. If there wasn't a restaurant on the property, there needed to be a restaurant walking distance to the property. That was something that consumers were really demanding. So here are a few shots of restaurants from my book, Los Altos Inn Motel. I was in Los Altos, California up until a few years ago. The sign, unfortunately, I never got to see, but you cannot miss that sign from the road. This was also in El Camino Real. World of Pancakes was the restaurant. Here is the Congo Steakhouse, and that is at the Tropics Motor Hotel in Palm Springs. At the time, Sambo's was operating the restaurant, and now the former Congo Steakhouse is now Sancho's, which is a Mexican cantina that is on the property. And the Tropics I can speak, Motor Hotel in Palm Springs is definitely a must visit. A lot of these motels had gimmicks like cocktail lounges with mermaid shows. And here was the one at the Fresno Hacienda. The El Rancho in Millbrae also offered a mermaid show. And if you want to see a mermaid show today, you still can. And that is in Fort Lauderdale. And I've got to remember the name because I remember the name. It's the Rec Bar at the Bee Ocean Resort, which used to be the former Yankee Clipper and is a motel in the shape of a ship. Now, I've been to the bar. It's incredible. I've been to that motel. Unfortunately, I missed the mermaid show, but you can still see a mermaid show. The rooms. I have a whole chapter devoted to rooms. Some of these motels hired interior designers, and the rooms were absolutely showstoppers. Here's the Stardust Motor Hotel in Anaheim. And you can see the orange trees outside. This was an early motel around Anaheim when they still had some of their orange groves that were there. Many people know that the orange groves were largely cleared for Disneyland Park. Here is probably the most spectacular property when it comes to motel rooms. It's the Madonna Inn in San Luis Obispo, not far from the world's first motel. And they opened, I think, Christmas Eve, 1958, and there are over 100 different rooms to choose from, no two alike. My favorite are the ones that offer showers that you can take in a cave. On the subject of rooms and also gimmicks and marketing differentiators, many of these motels offered vibrating beds or vibrating mattresses. And I spent a lot of time researching the companies behind vibrating beds. The first to offer vibrating beds was a company by the name of Pulse Nation Enterprises, and they were located in St. Petersburg, Florida. This was 1957 that they were founded, and basically it was a motor that was affixed to the box spring of the bed. It was actually built into the mattress itself, and it would offer you uh, relaxation, comfort, and actually they even extended their offering to saying that it would cure bursitis and arthritis and heart conditions. And within about a year, the FDA put them out of business for false advertising. So along came a mattress salesman uh, who decided to take advantage of Pulse Nation's misfortune and create a device, the Magic Fingers device that you can actually attach to the box spring, not built into the mattress, and made him an actual millionaire. Magic Fingers, many of you have maybe tried one, a little bit overrated, but fun to experience. The Magic Fingers didn't offer any sort of cures to a chronic disease, but they did offer you a good night's sleep. And if you still want to experience Magic Fingers in California, there's only one place that I know of that you can, and that's at the Sundown Inn in Morro Bay. Just a little tip, If you're going to be on a memory foam mattress, it will be hard to experience the magic fingers. Ask for an old-timey box spring mattress so you can get the full effect. Pools, very important to me. In a AAA survey in the early 1960s, the three most important things to travelers when it came to motels: one, a restaurant; two, a pool; and three, oh no, two is the TV, three is the pool. Restaurant, TV, pool. For me, the pool was number one. And here's a shot of the Aztec Motel in Buena Park, and you'll see not one, but two pool slides. I have a sneaky suspicion in this postcard image, all these people are family members. One of the fun things about these old postcards of motels is a lot of times the family members posed as the models in these scenes. So here is a fun party happening. Everybody in the family around the pool, and a wonderful shot of people having fun in the two pools. Of course, you've got the adult pool and you've got the children's pool with the little fountain. Here's the Sands Motel across from Disneyland. How do you know? You can see the Matterhorn and you can see the monorail going around the park, and you can actually see the highway as well. And a lot of these motels strategically positioned slides near the roads because they knew that kids would be in the back of these station wagons or in the back seat of the cars. They would see the slides and they'd want to stay at the motels with the slides. And that certainly worked for me. I love this postcard image of the Sands Motel because I think everybody was asked to wear red to match the sign. Here's the Sundial Lodge Motel. That was in Modesto. It actually had a working sundial. And these are members of the family that once owned the Sundial Lodge in the postcard view. Unfortunately, this sundial, which probably was a a lawsuit hazard, that was all removed at one point and buried underneath a walkway. But what a differentiator that was. And here, of course, is my beloved Inn of Tomorrow, not Inn of Tomorrow, Stovall's Space Age, one of the Stovall's motels with the Moon House, an exact replica of first building, and the aluminum spherical geodesic moon house was actually a changing room. And forgive me, the Inn of Tomorrow had a round moon-shaped, it was stucco. In later years that they had painted to brown, initially it was white and it looked like the moon. This one actually is from the Space Age Lodge, and they've got, of course, the obligatory pool, and they've got a pool that's in the shape of a space capsule. That pool is still in that shape. The signs. Signs extremely important. Every motel had to have a sign, especially around high tourist sections. Your sign really needed to stand out. Here are some of my favorites. The Jack and Jill Motel, 1958. I looked for years for an image of the sign. I finally got a postcard, but a little bit too late to make it into the book. The rendering, the architectural rendering is in the book, but the postcard image unfortunately came in later. But this was by Santa Ana Neon Company. They did a lot of the signs around the perimeter of Disneyland, and it was really a sign that you could not miss. The interesting thing about the Jack and Jill Motel is not only did the monkeys once stay here, but so did Colonel Sanders. This is the Americana Motel. This was in Anaheim, a little bit closer to Buena Park, and a number of the motels that were able to survive the Anaheim makeover were closer to Buena Park than they were to Anaheim. They were in Anaheim, but they were closer to maybe Knott's Berry Farm, and they just kind of escaped all of the redevelopment. The Americana Motel was there up until a few years ago, and I got to shoot the sign before it came down. And my friend Deborah Jane Seltzer, you may know from the SCA, as well as her roadsidearchitecture.com website, which is amazing. We went back and forth. What was that cutout? It had to have been a pool. We wanted to know what that cutout was for. And sure enough, when I finally was able to track down the postcard, there was a plexiglass insert that said swim pool that was once there. Here is the Downtowner Motel in Hollywood. It is absolutely gorgeous. Kathy Kickert helped them restore the sign with the panel at the top. She designed that. And this is off of Hollywood Boulevard. It is just incredible. I got to shoot this after it had been restored. It's very similar to the Carolina Hollywood signage. A friend of mine, Thomas Hawk, was able to find a slide of that. And I believe the reason for that is same owner, same developers of the properties. Kathy Kicker would probably know the backstory there, and she wrote the book Hollywood Signs. But both of these signs are really, mind-blowing. You can still see the Downtown Motel. When you go to LA for the SCA conference, make sure you stop by. The Foothills Motel is in Auburn, California. This is one of my favorites. This is Arme and Davis yet again. Used to be a Denny's on the property. It's no longer a Denny's, but I'm imagining that's what got them the commission. They built the motel and the coffee shop restaurant, and the signage is just absolutely incredible. I was there maybe 2 years ago after they had fully restored the property. It's a wonderful place to stay and very close to gold country. So Placerville, and going to see where gold was discovered. Just highly recommend that you visit the Foothills Motel. Stardust Lodge is my favorite place to stay in South Lake Tahoe. Why? Because of this sign. It is the best sign in South Lake Tahoe. Most of the signs from the mid-century period, the motel signs are long gone, but this one is still shining. I think it was by Electrical Products Corporation, 1963, and it's absolutely gorgeous. And the motel is very comfortable too. Has a pool, and it's walking distance to State Line and the casinos. No vacancy. What happened to these motels? What happened? Over 60,000 motels in the United States. What happened to them? Well, first of all, highways. Highways came in the mid 1950s, bypassing a lot of the smaller routes, a lot of the smaller streets and roadsides. And so people drove right by these little mom and pop motels, and they weren't getting the traffic, the roadside consumer traffic that they were getting before. There was also market saturation, over speculation. There just were too many motels in some areas. And so that was, made it very difficult for these small mom and pops. Also, here come the chains. We start to see chains like Travelodge, Motel 6, Vagabond, Miss Ramada, Ramada Inn, Howard Johnson's Motor Launches and Holiday Inn. They start to come in to California. If they weren't from California, like Travelodge and Motel 6 and Vagabond, they were coming in from out of state, and they were starting to take away business from the small mom and pops. And then, of course, there's redevelopment. Over time, you see these properties get torn down and larger multi-story hotels and other businesses built on the smaller imprint sites. Vacancy. There are still a lot of wonderful motels to experience. That's the good news. I would say that a good 80 to 85% of what's in my book is long gone. But many of these motels have survived, Lord knows how, probably because of good service and location. And I want to highlight some of these motels before I'm kicked off the Zoom. First of all, there's Saga Motor Hotel in Pasadena. Absolutely love this place. It was one of two sagas. There was another one near Disneyland that didn't make it, but this one is still going. And look at that amazing mosaic outside the front office. This is a wonderful place to stay. Again, Pasadena on the Route 66 trail. Next up, Wigwam Villages. If you're going to go to the SDA conference in Los Angeles, I highly recommend you take an extra few days, go on down to Rialto and stay in a wigwam. You will not be sorry. You need to do this. And then take a road trip down the California trek of Route 66. Go to Victorville and go to Barstow. It'll be worth your day trip. It's just incredible. Next up, the Safari Inn. That was the first slide in my presentation. Very special place. A number of movies have been filmed here, but the motel is literally like a time capsule, extremely comfortable. It's in Burbank, near other signs that you can shoot with a lot of history, and of course the movie studios, and it is a survivor, and look at that sign. Next up, Tropics Hotel, Palm Springs, one of my favorite places to stay. This is a photo by the great Darren Bradley. And look at that. It's just from 1963. There's no other tropics hotel that looks like this. And it's just comfortable, amazing. And it's now next to the Reef Bar and Sencho's. So make sure you stay at the Tropics Hotel. This is one of the Astro motels that survived and was revived in Santa Rosa, California. And they did a phenomenal job. Astro Motel in Santa Rosa, not far from the former Flamingo Motor Hotel. Now it's the Flamingo Resort. Both of those places are great places to stay up near wine country. And here's the Ocean Park Motel in San Francisco. It's the oldest motel in San Francisco, right around the corner from a wonderful doggy diner statue and from the San Francisco Zoo. This is from the 1930s. And look at the architecture, modern, streamlined modern, and it's still there, an extremely comfortable place to stay. And when I'm in Disneyland, I'm going to stay at the Alpine Inn. That's my favorite place to stay because look at that. The theming is still there. The sign may be gone, but the theming is very much still there. And I want to support this family-owned business. It's still owned by a family. My dad was always a big fan of the candy cane, but we switched off between the Alpine Inn and the candy cane. Here we are at the Madonna Inn, my long-suffering husband. This is our 15-year wedding anniversary a few years ago. You can see he's taken it for the team. In fact, when I was working on Motel California, we traveled up and down the state and stayed at numerous motels while I was working on this book. So he's a real trooper. I think that it was a little bit too much pink and gold for him, but we had a wonderful dinner at the Madonna Inn. They treated us like absolute royalty there. Just an amazing experience. And here's one of my favorites in Paso Robles. This is the Melody Ranch Motel. I'm really somebody who likes authenticity. So like if a motel hasn't changed that much, I mean, that's the kind of motel for me. I like boutique hotels and everything, but I really love the experience that I had as a child. And so if you like that kind of authentic experience, this is the motel for you in Paso Robles. And I want to thank you for joining me on this virtual road trip. If you're interested in my book, you can still pick up copies on Amazon and eBay, although I ask you to do so maybe over the weekend because I'm going to be going to Reno to see my friend Will and talk to him about his forthcoming museum, The Light Circus. But I do have copies of my book on Amazon and eBay. Also, this is a plea to join the SCA. I cannot tell you how much I'm grateful to the SCA for all of their support throughout the years for all of my projects. So thanks again to everybody for joining me on this fun little slideshow.
Well, thanks so much, Heather. That was unbelievable, just amazing. Really, really enjoyable show. And the signs are remarkable. Now you have about, oh, I don't know how many, I've lost count, but you've got about 30 comments in here from people saying how much they love this thing and how wonderful it is. And also just letting you know that, and letting everyone know that they stayed at this certain motel and they stayed at that motel and they loved it too and all the rest of it. But we do have some questions. Oh, by the way, I just wanted to tell you and everybody that we reached 100 viewers on this presentation, which is, it's not a record, but I think it's the second best record for all our Zoom presentations. So yeah, I think people really wanted to hear your message and it was quite well promoted too. But we do have some questions. And I'm just going to go back to one of the ones that came in quite early, but I think I can remember it. One of the viewers asked, did the motel, were there landscape architects involved in some of the landscaping for these motels?
I know for some of the the Dinah's Motor Hotel in Palo Alto, there was a landscape architect involved. I'd have to look that up. But yes, landscape architects were often not the smaller mom and pops, but some of the larger motor hotels. Yes, they did have landscape architects.
Oh,
And they
wow.
also had like major design firms. I mean, fancy design firms were brought in for some of the San Francisco motels.
Okay. Now, Cindy says, I wonder if Helen Fong worked on the Carolina Hollywood Hotel.
That could very well be.
Okay. She also asked, I missed who was the architect of Dinah's. Maybe you could just repeat that.
Campbell and Wong.
Okay. All right. Now let me just scoop or move down here a little bit. Now you said that you think 85% of them are gone now. Only about of the ones that were in your presentation and in the books, which is a lot. That's a lot, but 15% are still there.
Well, I mean, that's just my guesstimate of what's in my book. I think that 80% in their original form are definitely gone. Some of the
Right.
motels have survived and they have been used for low-income housing. Um, we're seeing that, but we're also seeing the rise of the boutique hotel. And that's one of the things that the LA Times article really covered and focused on is this resurrection of motels, offering people that maybe didn't grow up with the motel as part of their experience a chance to experience what it would have been like for a new generation of motel and roadside travelers.
Right. It's funny. So we've had a bunch of comments about the mermaid shows, and somebody says it's the Rec Bar in Fort Lauderdale where they
Rock
call
bar,
it
yeah.
that Rec Bar. And then Patrick Owens says this is not a California comment, but the Sip and Dip Lounge in the O'Hare Inn is still alive if you need a mermaid show in Montana.
Cool. I'm making a note of that.
Okay. He says, disclaimer, it does smell like bleach in the tiki bar.
That's okay with me.
Now, one part of the presentation I really enjoyed was the part about the magic fingers. I mean, I remember seeing those things in hotels or motels when we would go on trips with my as a family with my parents. Cindy says, I remember when I traveled as a kid, my parents let us put the quarters in the magic fingers bed. We thought it was a fun ride.
I thought it was a little overrated. I'd really worked myself up to it. I thought it was going to be really, I don't know, spectacular. But if you ever go to those massage chairs at the airport or, if you ever go get a, manicure, pedicure and you sit in a massage chair, it kind of reminds me of that. But it's
Yeah.
amazing how few of these devices still exist. I really think that they came to be associated. Motel, unfortunately, fell into hard times and for a while, and I think they came to be associated as being somewhat seedy.
Mhm.
Um, but they made the founder, I think his name is John Houtling, a lot of money.
Yeah. There you go. That's good. Now, Deborah Jane says, do you know if the Alpine Inn and the Clearman's restaurants were related in any way? She says both with the snow-covered roofs and built around the same time and not far away from each other.
That I don't know. The family that owns the Alpine Motel right now or the Alpine Inn right now, they're not the first owners, but they've had it for decades. But there was a restaurant right next door to the Alpine Inn that was also Alpine themed.
Okay. So maybe, well, those two obviously, I guess, were connected, but the other ones. Now, Steve Spiegel says, is the Matterhorn Motel in Tahoe still there?
It is, but it's been stripped of so much of the theming. I
Oh,
think it's now it might be kind of Airbnb or it could be housing. The property is still there, and you could still see some of the decorative panels on the fencing, but it's not it doesn't look like that anymore.
okay. Deborah Jane also asked, I mentioned that 90 or 100 viewers was our second best viewership so far. So she asked, well, what's the best? And the
It's
best was,
Steve.
no, it wasn't Steve. Actually, Steve had a really good viewership too. It was actually Brian Butko with a presentation on the Lincoln Highway. This is back about 2 years ago and it was also promoted very heavily among the Lincoln Highway Association. I think we had about 130 or so for that one, so that was our best one. But this one is, boy, right up there.
And we could still see that, right? That's the wonderful thing about these presentations. We could go in and still see them. I need to
Yeah,
see the Lincoln Highway.
yeah, absolutely. They're all there. Just go to the website sca-roadside.org, and I think it's under library or something, and then it says Zoom presentations. You click on that, and they're all listed. They're in chronological order, so you can just zoom back and or keep scrolling back until you find it. Now, Patrick has a good question for you, and this I'll be interested to hear your answer. How many motels have you stayed in to date?
Oh my goodness. I've never counted. I'll have to go back and think about it. And it's not just California, right? So like if I go anywhere, I'm going to stay in a motel. Like if I go to Tucson, I'm going to stay in a motel in Tucson. If I go to Phoenix, I want to stay in a historic property. And what's nice is usually in most places, there's at least one place that's, decent to stay. And you're seeing more and more boutique hotels all over the country. So Um, I'll have to get back to you on that. I don't know. I mean, I stayed in
Okay.
a lot of them when I was working on the book, but I don't know how many.
I was when I read this question, I thought, oh, that's like a birder keeping a life list, of all the birds they've seen. And so I wonder if Heather has a list of all the motels she stayed at.
Not at all, but the most important was always wanted to stay at the Inn of Tomorrow. And for some reason, I guess, I just forgot. I forgot that I had stayed there. And my dad insisted that we had stayed there. I guess it left a really, I don't know, unfortunate memory with him, but it was just, I don't know. I was happy to say that I had stayed there. Maybe I was so focused on Disneyland that I wasn't really appreciating the details of the Inn of Tomorrow. But I just thought it was just incredible. I
Yeah.
didn't need to go to Disneyland. I could have just spent the whole day going around motel to motel around the perimeter of
Wow.
the park.
Oh, that's crazy. Peter Ives asks, is there a new edition of your book forthcoming?
I don't know. I had to self-publish my first book. I got impatient trying to find a publisher, and I wanted it done a very certain way. So I probably can't afford to do a second edition. I mean, this might be it. I have a couple boxes left. That's it. I printed 1,500 copies and promoted it as best as I could. That had to go back to work for a couple of years and didn't have much time to promote it. I'd love to do a second edition. So if a publisher wanted to take it on, I'd say, good 80% of the work's already done. But I just can't. It's very expensive to self-publish.
Yeah.
I can't do it again.
Okay. Well, I think if you did, you'd have a lot of fans out there that would be very happy. Oliver Sherry asks, do you think the film Psycho, due to its cultural impact, might have had an impact on the smaller mom and pops? In other words, people would rather stay at a larger hotel because they saw that movie and it spooked them.
It's funny that you should ask that because I just saw that movie for the first time a couple nights ago.
Oh my God.
Um,
Okay.
I don't, I really think the federal highway system
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
put so many businesses out of business,
Yeah.
or made it extremely difficult for them to compete. I think that, um, I think the chains, right? So you've got these small mom and pops that are struggling, and the chains come in and they offer standardized services
Yeah.
and a certain level of commitment to the quality of your service, the Best Western, the franchise and referral chains. I just think it just became more and more difficult for the mom and pops to compete. And then they went to kind of weekly and hourly pricing, and it was just kind of the beginning of the end, right?
Right.
Um, so I think that was that, and yeah, popular culture might have played a hand in it, but I think it was more the federal highway system.
Oh, I agree 100%. Stephanie Stuckey has a good question. She says, I need to read the book because it's probably in there, but curious about some of the fun merch you find at these motels, like matchbooks and postcards, and plus a lot of them have cool ashtrays. She'd love to hear your thoughts on the memorabilia associated with these retro motels.
Come to my garage. Um, when I was waiting for the book to be printed, I had some time on my hands and I started collecting ashtrays, ice buckets, motel directories, plastic key fobs, which they don't use anymore, by the way, because they use the magnetic slide keys. They're harder it's harder to break into the room. Um, I have so much stuff. I've got over 100 motel soaps, branded motel soaps. They did an article about my motel soaps in Australia. All this is on my Flickr site. I'm HM David on Flickr. I put everything on Flickr and tag it. So if you want to see some of my collection, you can. But yeah, I mean, these things, I think the ashtrays and the matchbooks and all that stuff, they were meant to be taken because they became it was brand repetition, and especially the matchbooks. Um, the more matchbooks you could pass out, the better off it would be. Every time there's a strike, it's just another brand opportunity. But yeah, I have a huge collection of ephemera. It's pretty bad. I even have a couple vibrating bed devices, but they're not on my beds.
Well, you know what? Here's a comment here. Somebody can beat you. Chris Geddes writes and says a buddy of mine has a 50s motel room in his house with magic fingers.
Where?
I don't know.
He should charge admission.
Yeah, exactly.
I think the Ford Museum has a room too, a motel room in the museum, if I'm correct.
Yeah, I've been there a couple of times, guys. I'm in Toronto and I go down to Detroit usually once a year. You know, I always go to the Henry Ford Zoo, fantastic museum. Any SCA should go there because they have a full-scale diner that serves food. You can buy a meal in there right inside the museum and lots of cool stuff like that. Last question. We're running out of time here, so I guess I'll do one more. And it's Randy Turner says, have you had any really bad experiences, even if you don't wish to name the motel?
Um, I don't think I've had really any bad experiences at a motel where I've stayed because I do my research up front before I stay somewhere. Um, I mean, the most I could say is that a lot of the motels were built kind of cheaply and quickly, and so that the sound can carry from one room to the next. And so when I stayed at one of the Anaheim motels a few years back, there were kids next door that were so excited to be going to Disneyland. It was like 1 o'clock in the morning. They were screaming. I'm old. I want to sleep.
Yeah,
I
right.
couldn't sleep because the walls were so thin. But then I remembered what I felt like when I was a little kid and how excited I was, and I didn't want to bang on the door or anything and tell them to be quiet. I didn't want to be that person. I've had situations where we're doing kind of research and we're documenting the motels, and I'm photographing the motels from the outside. And I've had experiences where, um, you know, my husband's been propositioned or we've run into people, that are, selling drugs or other things. And that can be a little bit unsettling, because some of the best preserved motel strips are in rundown areas, right? They're just the people, they're arrested development. They're just stuck in time. It's some decay, but they're still largely intact. They haven't been remodeled. Um, some of the best motels are in maybe not the best areas. And so, you have to prepare yourself for maybe people that, you know, could scare you a little bit.
Yeah. Well, you know what? That's just not motels. You can find that anywhere. So
That's true. That's very
yeah,
true.
if that's the worst experience you've had, then you're not doing too badly, I don't think.
No, no. And all the motels that I recommended at the end, I've stayed at all of those.
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. Now,
Mhm.
Josh has his hand up. Josh, I unmuted you. Did you want to say something?
Hey Brian,
Hello, Josh.
how you doing?
I'm
Hi
doing
Heather.
well.
I just wanted to make a comment. Thank you so much for taking me for a moment, Brian. I just want to say, number one, Heather, your presentation was amazing. Your book is phenomenal. And
Thank
on
you.
top of it all, Heather is an extraordinary person because she found something in her hometown, a matchbook with my name on it, Jay Silber, Women's Apparel. And not only did she find it, but she actually sent it to me. And I think that was just the greatest thing in the entire world. So thank you for doing that, Heather. Again, I just wanted to give you a shout out for that. And maybe you could just talk very briefly, because I know we're out of time and Brian gets very nervous. But if you could tell us a little bit about the matchbooks and all the amazing finds that you've
Oh my gosh, I have binders and binders of matchbooks. I started collecting, it's bad. I mean, matchbooks are- I'm fascinated because what a great marketing concept. I mean, just
had.
think of for each strike, you're looking at it's like a little billboard in your hand. Um, and if you pass a matchbook to somebody else, that's another brand impression. And so what for 3 cents, maybe a couple cents, think of the number of brand impressions you're getting from a matchbook. Um, but the illustrations, I just love the illustrations. And the sad part of it is we'll never know who did these illustrations. And to me, that's really frustrating. There are people working in like big, offices, and they all had their desks and they were cranking out these illustrations. Some of them are absolutely incredible. And I love feature matchbooks, jewel light matchbooks. I have a very big collection, and I'll tell you, it was very difficult for me to part with that, Josh.
Well, just know that this extraordinary
I'm glad you
bond
like it, but
uh,
that was a
will
store
be
in downtown
preserved
San
forever.
Jose, and I'm happy that I found that. But I part with a lot of stuff when people reach out to me and they say, "Oh, that was my family's motel, and I'll be like, you can have the brochure.
That's
Or
awesome.
if it means something to somebody and it means more to them than it means to me, then they can have it.
Wow.
Well, we'll find another one of these one day so your collection can be complete, but it means a lot to me. So thank you so
And
much.
thank you for your matchbook. That means a lot to me too.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
Well, maybe we can find one that's marked H. David Men's Apparel and send it through to Heather.
I
I
got
did
pretty
get a
close.
David's matchbook.
I got pretty
Yeah.
close. I got pretty
Yeah.
close.
You did. Thank you.
All right. Thanks very much, Josh. That was a nice diversion. I'm just going to, before we wrap up, I just want to remind everybody about next month, when on Wednesday, November 17th at 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific, we will join Andrew and Kelsey McClellan, the Chicago sign painters who operate Heart and Bone Signs, and they will discuss their sign preservation efforts as well as their journey into self-publishing the book, The Golden Era of Sign Design. And SCA members will be receiving the relevant details and registration link for the September talk, or for the October talk, for the November talk by email, and others can register through the SCA site directly. I'd like to thank all our guests for spending some time with us. You can expect an email shortly inviting you to join the SCA if you're not already a member, and you enjoy all the benefits of membership. And I'd like to remind everybody of the recording, which will be available. Usually it's tomorrow morning. Our web people are very efficient and anybody can watch it. So if your friends and neighbors and relatives and colleagues didn't have a chance to join us live, they can watch the whole show, including the questions and answers, starting tomorrow on our website. Now, Heather, was there anything that we'd like to say in parting?
No, I'm really grateful for the opportunity. I'm really grateful to see everybody. I'm just glad, it was more than just, me and my husband and my dad. Yeah, if you've ever done presentations, I mean, sometimes you get like three people and
Mhm.
sometimes you get 150. So you
That's
never
right.
know what you're gonna get, but it's pretty shameful when you only get like 10.
Yes. Well, I've been to the musical shows usually where the performer comes out and says, "Oh, I see it's a small but mighty crowd." Well, tonight we
Yeah,
got a large and mighty crowd, so that's
yeah. So I'm
that's
so
good.
grateful that everybody showed up. It's
Um,
important for my self-esteem.
yes, of course. Now, Heather, can you tell us what's the best way to get your book if somebody would like to buy a copy of it?
Well, if you're okay with Amazon, there's some copies on Amazon. And
Right.
if you're not okay with Amazon, I have it on eBay. I also have it on Etsy, but my Etsy shop closed because I'm going to be going to Reno again this weekend, Reno and Virginia City. Going to go to the Bucket of Blood Saloon.
All right.
Um, uh, but yeah, I mean, I used to have a website, but it just got to be too hard to track all the different sales taxes. So I just said, I'll let it go through uh, one of these big sites. So that's where it is. And I don't have that many copies left. So I think it'll be kind of bittersweet when I sell my last copy.
Well, you just sold one more because we just got a comment online from a viewer who said, "I just bought one." So you're down one.
That's awesome. My husband wants them gone.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you the first thing I'm doing when I get off the offline today is I'm buying one
Well,
too. So there's two gone.
thanks. Thanks so much.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Heather, and thank all our viewers for coming tonight. And the recording will be available tomorrow, and we hope to see everybody next month as well. So I wish everybody a good night and a good evening.
Thanks again, everybody.